Your troubles are there to help you in that process. They don't interfere with it. They are gifts to you. Every problem is a way to show you some new angles to how life works. I believe, and that last sentence I think is very important, that freedom and meaning are emergent properties of existence. We only claim more freedom as we get better at managing our flow through time, and we get better at measuring how to be with each other, and we can actually see the freedom that is available in the world and see how we can wind our way through it. And we also see the meanings, because we see how things are connected. And with every bit of experience, more pieces slide into the puzzle. And the more of those pieces have come together, and the more meaning we feel, because we know where we fit into it all. But also the more freedom we feel, because we see the possibilities. Now, Kirk, my friend, here I come to our great divide between humanism and existential work. I have made myself think about this very carefully. So, are we just in the here and now? Thich Nhat Hanh is very right when he said, the present moment is the only moment available to us, and it is the door to all moments. But that is the important bit. It is not a state, because, you know, the second goes and you're in the next moment. It is a portal. Every moment that you live is a portal to your past, to your future, and even to eternity. And here I turn to our teacher, Eugene Minkowski, who really had his act together on this. And he said, the present is all we've got. But actually, the present is composed of many strands. It is composed of the remote past, the immediate past, the immediate past, the immediate future, and the remote future. And so he described in great detail how we are in time in relation to the remote past, which is the zone of the obsolete and history, and how we create our life myth in that. And that's part of the work we do with our clients. Help a client create a life myth that they can live by, and that is a learning myth, a heroic myth, where they feel encouraged rather than destroyed by what has happened in their lives. And so we deal with the loss and regret of the immediate past too, going over it until it is absorbed and understood, and the remorse or the grief in the immediate past. But we also turn to the future, to expectations, checking how realistic they are, or maybe how few expectations the person has and how little they see of their own potential. And we also think about wishes and hopes and dread and anxiety, but also prayer and ethical action and the ultimate meaning of life. Read Minkowski, he'll teach you a lot. So I think time is multidimensional, as the physicists are more and more saying too. We are in all those layers at the same time. You know, I said I dedicate this to my mum, and by doing that I conjured her up, and she's kind of with me. I don't think she's there, or she has a ghost, or she has a soul, but my mum is with me. She is there, and she will always be. And so you have many people in your lives that you can allow a space in your present. And you have also thoughts about how you would like your future to be, that you can invite into your inner space. And you can also learn to stand in relation to eternity and timelessness and the parallel universes, which is such a wonderful topic. You know, physicists who believe that at every choice point you have, every choice that was possible is acted out somewhere in a parallel universe. So you are not just responsible for the choice you make, you're also responsible for the choices you haven't made. And the idea of special relativity, of time dilation, of the changes in time, how fast time flows when you do something you're deeply engaged with. You know it's different to when you are bored. You know it. And I can guarantee you that time weighed heavily on my hands when I was a kid. But now it's just like nothing. It's flying past like lightning. So we need to make the most of our time and collect all the meanings we can get. All our past meanings, our present meanings, our future meanings, and very importantly, as you prepare for death, the eternal meanings too. So I use this method called structural existential analysis, and Claire Arnold Baker and myself are in the middle of writing a book about it, which will be published by Routledge. And this is a bit about how we work with time, but this is taken directly from Heidegger. So Heidegger said, in the past, we can either live forgetting what has happened, or regretting what has happened, or we can live with what he called repetition. We go over it and we recollect from it, literally go and collect from it the elements we need right now to make sense of where we are. And if you start to use your past experiences in that way, they become a huge and wonderful resource of things you have learned and things that are possible. In the present, you can either wait or rush, or you can be in the Gegenwart, in the being within the world, with all those hyphens in place, the connectivity of that moment. In the future, you can be as going toward, as longing for something or dreading something. But you can also learn to be in what he called anticipatory being towards death. And what that is to gather in your entire life and kind of own it, kind of have the authority over this work of art you are creating. When I make a painting, I start with an image of what I want to represent. Then I start doing the meticulous work of, getting the perspective right, getting the medium to work, doing the details of things, adjusting things. But all the time, I think back to the image, the vision that I'm trying to represent. In temporality, we can, as being eternal or infinite, we can reclaim our eiknes, the re-owning of our life. Eiknes means the event, the coming into view of what is possible, to live with the possible. And that, Heidegger said in his later work, directly leads to an immense sense of understanding and therefore gratitude of the being that is given to you. The gratitude for all you've already experienced, all you are currently experiencing, and all that is still possible to experience. He says that thanks alone gives rise to thinking of the kind we know as retribution and reward in the good and bad, sense. So I personally like Baruch Spinoza's way of looking at things. He's always been one of my favorite philosophers, the only really Dutch philosopher that you can find, by the way, but really Portuguese. So he concluded that life should be considered, as he said, sub specie aeternitatis, which is Latin for under a kind of eternity. If you can think of yourself in relation to eternity and infinity, then you see yourself in a new perspective. You see how you connect to all that is and that ever will be, and all that flows through you and has ever flown, really, and will continue ever to flow. And when you do that, things take on a very different way of feeling about it. Instead of having dilemmas, you start to have analemmas. You know what they are? I love the analemmas. There it is. Look where we are. The analemma is the way you plot the positions of the sun over a whole year, and it creates a magic figure 8. It's what's called the lemniscate, and we also refer to it as the lazy 8. It's an 8 on its side, so it's a lazy 8. It's like it's lying down. It's the symbol of infinity, and I've used that figure 8 to understand how to work with time. So it always refers to eternity, but within that, each of our lives is actually this flow of 2 figure 8s from past to present, around your present, in the now, and into the future in your mind, back to the present, back to the past. It's a constant dynamic movement of your mind in 2 figure 8. You got it, absolutely. And that is another way of representing it. So there is the eternity around you, but you yourself are doing this recollecting of your past, being in the moment, and thinking, projecting into the future. And it goes on and on and on. This was the figure Claire and I came up with for our little book, Existential Therapy, Distinctive Features to Experience the Same Thing. And there you have it, going around your past, referring it back to your present, to the future, referring it back to the present, but ultimately it goes wider and wider. As you understand better these different cycles of learning you go through, you begin to understand how it actually relates to something much better. So we rise above the idea of the personal timeline, which is, a way to show how you're doing in your life. But that's a very narrow way of looking at it. You go up as things go well, you go down when things don't go well. You can plot your lifeline, you can play with it at each level of existence. You can kind of see how you're getting on in life. But that forgets that whole thing about paradox, and that whole thing about how we actually learn in time. It forgets the dialectical movement, where you have a thesis, your view of the past, an antithesis, your view of yourself in the present, and out of those 2, you are creating a synthesis, which is a wider view of how you go into the future. So dialectics matter because they are what enable us to go beyond our troubles, not by just ignoring them or leaving them behind, but by transcending them towards that view of eternity. So, looking at this, for instance, if you feel you are weak and vulnerable, which I'm pretty sure you will all feel sometimes. So you start out with the idea, I'm weak and vulnerable, and you see others being strong and aggressive, but they aren't really. That's just a different way of being weak and vulnerable as well. So, you know, they're sort of opposites. They're a tension, and you wonder, you know, as many of our clients do, should I learn to be strong and aggressive like all those bullies are, or should I remain weak and vulnerable? Well, you know, dialectically speaking, you do both. It's never a compromise. You just make yourself bigger, and you feel some of that courage in yourself, as well as being weak and vulnerable, and you realize that gradually you're becoming sensitive and resilient. So you have a bit of all of that, and eventually you transcend that, and you begin to see elements of that all around you, and you're no longer isolated, because you start to recognize that your own process is shared in all these other human bodies and in all these other human lives, and that we're all on the same bloody trajectory, and we make our lives so difficult by making enemies of each other. What we need to recover is that dialectical movement. So that is when the light comes back. You know, when I started with that sun that shines on us, we begin to embody that light, the light of understanding. In this poem it says, I cannot tell you how the light comes. What I know is that it is more ancient than imagining, that it travels across an astounding expanse to each of us. May we lift our faces to let it find us. May you lift your face and find it, each of you. May we bend our bodies to follow the arc it makes. And we do need to bend our bodies sometimes. May you be supple and flexible about it. May we open and open more, because when we open, we can love and we can create and we can understand. And may we open still to the blessed light that comes. And this is way beyond us, you know, way beyond our understanding. This universe that we are a part of, it is a reality, it is a fact. We don't have to have arguments about it. We had those arguments, poor Galileo and poor Copernicus, they were killed for it when they realized that we were going around the sun and not the other way around. Well, it's the same for each of us. We are not it. We are just some place, some space in which a process is happening. Open to the process and the light will shine in you. Be in touch with the ontodynamics. Do not fear to open to truth and to open your eyes and your heart to what is actually going on. This is what Sartre said in his book Truth and Existence, which was published posthumously. To be open to true vision is to be free and to find your path and your destiny. And this is really important. And you don't have to solve all the puzzles in your life at the same time. Let your boat float on the surface sometimes. Be kind on yourself. Be patient with yourself. And learn to live with the mystery instead of having to figure it all out at the same time. Trust that life will show you the way if you gently persist with the enigma that we're all trying to puzzle out. So encompass this as much as you can, so that you can surpass your trouble and find your particular mission and direction. And you know your neurons will follow. It's amazing what those little buggers can do in your head. But don't turn it around. Don't think what matters is what the neurons are doing. The neurons will make more connections if you do this existential work. And the neurons will even regenerate if you allow yourself to remember. And you allow yourself to feel. And you allow yourself to connect. They will connect too. They are your servants, not your masters. So the art of living is very much about spirituality, but existential spirituality, as far as I'm concerned. It's about weaving the different strands of life together into a meaningful whole that holds you safe. And strands are constantly added and taken away, and those losses are part of the learning. And they're also very important to us. And we need to tend carefully to all that pain and all that joy, so that we can find ourselves again and know where we are and have a sense of direction and purpose. We tune in to nature. Isn't that a beautiful picture? That sums it up for me, really. But then I love elephants. And we have to get close to nature, because it shows us things we forget all the time. And we have to stay in movement. When you stop, you're having a rest, and you need a rest. Every night you need a good rest. But you also need to stay in movement with time and hold it lightly. And move from your perplexity to clarity, and from despair to hope. What is hope? It is a commitment to the future, a future of possibility, no matter what. Hope is openness. Hope is to be open. Hope is actually the same as love, but love is more directed. It is an openness that allows you to make a commitment to a particular world and to a particular being in that world. And it makes room, you make room for those things in your inner world. But it's always about hope. So Nietzsche said, to be radically free, we need to stop letting existence be a thoughtless accident and take up the challenge of what we are given as human beings and what we can make of this exciting journey, and to love our life in all its manifestations. You know where that is, don't you? That is where you learn to find out that you have to know yourself. And Nietzsche says, loving your fate and destiny in all its manifestations, that's amor fati, that's loving your life. And that is to recapture your radical freedom and to discover that freedom is a source given to you rather than something you have to do. And that is Schelling who said it. So back to that image. We stand strong and we move and we let it all flow through us. So we do that at all levels. I've just got to credit my own teacher, which I haven't done enough in my career. Michel Henry was my teacher at the University of Montpellier, and he taught me about phenomenology. But a phenomenology that is a very different phenomenology than people normally talk about it. He said life reveals itself through pathos, through suffering, and what we need is an interior phenomenology rather than a phenomenology of the things in the world. And I've taken that challenge very seriously, and I think I have done him proud. So what we need is a phenomenology of life that makes room for our emotions, because this is how our existential birth happens. We are born physically into the world at birth, but we earn our existential birth by taking it upon ourselves to be open to what is, and to not shirk the responsibility to bear our troubles and to learn from them, and to take the responsibility to give our gift to the world, and to be creative and to be loving as much as we can manage or muster. And then really truth will set us free. Not some abstract truth, but the truth you figure out on your path in action in the world. And that will be an experience of really feeling you have a place under those stars and you are a child of the universe, going step by step with life as your guide. And this is what you do with your clients too. You walk with them and you help them explore the path and all its obstacles. I won't go on about that. You do this with many different levels of engagement, first through the feelings, then through the meanings, then checking the facts, then into the understanding, then figuring out the limitations, then the possibilities, and then shifting towards the dialectics and the transformative process, which leads to the ending of therapy. These compasses of emotions have been my absolute essential tool to understand where people are at. And I know everybody has only a limited amount of freedom at any point, and it is up to them to discover what they can and want to do, and not for me to say. But there are many things that stop our freedom. At the physical level, it's our facticity that stops it. The needs we have for safety, shelter, hygiene, sleep, food, water, elimination, sex, procreation, our aging, our fragility, disability, our lack of resources, including money or self-care or comfort, natural disasters, aggression and destruction in war and revolution, accidents, death, illness, poverty. My God, how do we do it with all these challenges? And that's just the physical. You know, give yourself some credit. Man, you're doing all this. You're having loads of these things on your path. You're doing it. That's amazing.
Emmy,
socially, yes.
We're running out of time.
Yeah, okay, I'll come to the end here. What blocks your freedom at a social level is law and order. We need it, but it also blocks you. Slavery, wage slavery, coercion, rivalry, competition, deceit, fraud, guile, lack of respect, oppression, racism, misogyny, bullying, hierarchies and rules, patronage, fashions, traditions, imprisonment, house arrest, emotional confusion. What stops freedom at the personal level? Fragility of integrity, confusion about personality or multiple personalities, grandiosity, intolerance of self and other, bias, prejudice, error, character armor, harshness, lack of memory, imagination or reflection, denial, craving for oblivion, uncertainty, unconsciousness, illusions of acrasia. Acrasia in philosophy means weakness of will. Many people have the illusion that they have a weak will. None of us have a weak will. If you're alive, you have a strong will. To survive, you've got to do a lot of stuff every day. If you can support your life, you are okay. Don't let it get to you. Finally, what blocks freedom at the spiritual level? Amorality, random fatalism, ideological obsessions, hedonism and bliss as the only possibility. I'm not against a little bit of hedonism and bliss occasionally, but if that becomes the one and only thing you do, you got a problem. confusion about contradictions and paradox, lack of purpose and passion, fear of the beyond, of the gods, of the eternal, fanaticism, pursuit of delusions, superstitions, lack of vitality and creativity, no inspiration, purpose, or passion. So now you know why it is so bloody difficult to live. There are good reasons why you despair occasionally, but you have made it this far and you're doing great, and your clients are also doing much better than you think much of the time. Just remember to find your freedom, to get inner clarity and a sense of direction and meaning again, and you're going to be just fine. Thank you very much for